Hello and welcome to Bible Study with Alice, and today we are on day 64, Psalm 64 of our day's Psalm reading. We are reading from the ESV translation, but you're more than welcome to join us from a different translation. As you can see, we are on Psalm 64. I just want to mention before we get started that yesterday's video was a bit all over the place, so I do apologise. So I had burnt my fingers on the hob yesterday morning before I even started anything. I had trapped my fingers in the tripod, the same two fingers, and it was just a great morning. But it's fine. I'm here. It's okay. And so we're on Psalm 64. These videos are filmed in real time. It is Monday morning, the 6th of January 25, and you can find the previous 63 Psalms in the playlist below. And there is a disclaimer as usual, and that is one, these videos are unedited, and also I'll probably stumble on my wording. Let's get started. Hide me from the wicked, to the choir master, a psalm of David. Hear my voice, O God, in my complaint, preserve my life from dread of the enemy. Hide me from the secret plots of the wicked, from the throng of evildoers, who whet their tongues like swords, who aim bitter words like arrows, shooting from ambush at the blameless, shooting at him suddenly and without fear. They hold fast to their evil purpose. They talk of lying, snare secretly, thinking, who can see them? They search out injustice, saying, we have accomplished a diligent search. For the inward minds and heart of man are deep. But God shoots his arrow at them. They are wounded suddenly. They are brought to ruin with their own tongues turned against them. All who see them will wag their heads. Let all mankind fear. They'll tell what God has brought about and ponder what he has done. Let the righteous one rejoice in the Lord and take refuge in him. Let all the upright in heart exult. So that is Psalm 64 complete, and tomorrow we will be doing Psalm 65. So for all new viewers who are new to the channel, I will put a post-it note onto the screen. I'm aware that obviously if you are returning you will know all this, but just so new viewers are aware of what's happening. And I'll talk about the psalm that we just read, and we discuss what the psalm is about, and if there's any themes throughout the psalm, and we talk about the time period that the psalm was written in. I always have to mention this now because I don't want anybody thinking anything untoward, but there are a lot of psalms in the book of Psalms where the time period is unknown. So if you have watched previous videos, especially more recent videos, there are a lot of them that are unknown, and that's due to the fact that historians and scholars aren't 100% sure on when that psalm was written, and they obviously have to classify it as unknown because they don't know when it was written. And there are obviously psalms where they do know. So it kind of goes, I guess the reason why they don't know the time period is due to like the way, I mean, I'm not like an English expert, even though I'm from the United Kingdom. I'm not like an English language literature expert, but I would assume it's more of the poetic way of how it's written, so it's more of the poetic styling, is why they struggle to understand when the time period would have been. That's my main theory on it. It could be due to the fact that of the poetic style. I don't really know. I need to look into that one. I will have to look into that, to be honest. But it would be more to do with the way it was written, not a case of when it was written. It's more of they go by the style of writing. Could it have been in this particular time period? Could have been in another time period. So yeah, that's kind of how it generally goes on. So with Psalm 64, we'll make it a little bit bigger. With this one, it's between the 9th and the 5th century. We're not certain if it's like the 9th century or if it's the 5th century, but they know it's kind of around that type of period. And it's a prayer by David. And when I say David, we all should know there's only one David really mentioned in the Bible, and that's King David. But then it could be when he was king or before he was king. But in this case, it would have been. It's definitely obviously before he was king, David. And it's a so obviously it's a prayer by David for protection from his enemies and a message about God's judgment. So there are some psalms. I'm going to mention this kind of briefly, but it will interlink with what's wrote here. There are some psalms where it does get mentioned about God's judgment, and it's usually involving like a time in his life, David's life, or it could be, obviously as it says here, an event of David's life. And that's where obviously that's how they can link the two psalms together. Like the psalm, oh my gosh, link the psalm to the event, because there are obviously some psalms where they will mention a particular time in his life, but I have to go back slightly. I'm going to go slowly backwards because I can't remember exactly which number, but yeah, Psalm 51. I knew I had to go back slowly, so I would have missed it. So like with Psalm 51, I mean, you can go and watch Psalm 51 in the playlist. This was obviously during his relationship with Bathsheba. So obviously that's kind of an event that would have occurred. So that psalm would have written during his relationship with Bathsheba. So when I say that in Psalm 64, as in God's judgment on David's enemies is not especially connected to any moment / event in David's life. Obviously, Psalm 64 doesn't have any link to that, but obviously, I can't remember this psalm, but oh my gosh, this is great. Psalm 51 even, yeah, so Psalm 51, it does link to an event in David's life, where obviously Psalm 64, there is not actually a link, a connection to that event, to any event or any particular moment in David's life. So that's what Psalm 64 is about. There is another thing. It is a lament. We will go to the beginning and talk about it because it's just there. Psalm 64. So a lament is a type of prayer song that is a cry for God to act in the midst of pain and grief. And obviously those are the numbers of psalms that are a individual lament. So A lament is a personal feeling. They are the most common type of psalm. They often begin with an invocation to God, followed by the lament and request for help, and end with an expression of trust in God. So, I have mentioned this in previous videos, not a recent video, but I have mentioned it in previous videos about a lament. And I mean, you can go and watch them videos, but I will obviously save you that. I'm not saying you can't go and watch them, because obviously if you want to, you can, but I will obviously explain it. But I know some people are thinking, actually I'll go and have a look through the playlist and have a look at what videos are there that are in relation to lament. But a lament is when we pray throughout the day and we've got pain or grief happening in our life, we obviously turn to God for comfort, for him to help us in that pain and grief, and we obviously will want his comfort in our time of need. So we always start our lament, our prayer, with an invocation to God. We have to invite God in. I had mentioned this. It's like if you're talking to somebody, you kind of, I don't know if it's just me, but if I was wanting to talk to my mum directly, I would obviously say mum, and then obviously give her whatever I want to ask her, and then she will obviously respond. But it's a bit like that with God. You kind of have to obviously ask God by name, God, Heavenly Father, whatever way we want to address them as, before we even get started with anything we're going with. And then we then follow that then by obviously the lament. So obviously we invite God in, and then we follow that then by the lament, and we always then request for help from God. We always ask God to help us in our time of need, in our pain, grief, in our sorrow, our situation that we've got going on. But we always end it with an expression of trust in God that he will fulfill his promise of helping us, because we do need that. We do need his comfort in our time of need. We always need that, because we want God to help us and to keep us going in our time of need. We always want him there. I know when I've done my prayers, I've always wanted him present, and for him to be present, we obviously got to invite him in, even though he's always around us, always there keeping us comforted in our time of need, our issues that's going on. He's always there, but he will only respond to us if we've asked him for help. He's not going to help us without us asking. He's not, we like to think that he would obviously help us regardless, but he wants us and wants us to help. He wants us to ask him for help, but he can't help us unless we ask him. So that's why you have to obviously invite him in, and then obviously then you follow it through with the lament, and then request his help, and then an expression of trust that God will fulfill his promise, because he will. We just have to have that absolute trust in our heart and in our soul and in our beings that he will fulfill his promise. He will help us. He will guide us through what's going on in our life, and he will be there to comfort us in our time of need. So that is what an individual lament is all about. I do write in the day and date, and obviously yesterday everything just went wrong with the camera. And the day before that, the Saturday, I completely missed it off. So you know that it is in real time is when I do write it in, even though I can assure you that yesterday's video was done in real time and Saturday's video was done in real time. I just missed it off, and then the camera went weird. So it is day 64, and it's the 6th of January 25. So that is that done, and then tomorrow we will be doing Psalm 65. Thank you for watching. Please like my content. I would really appreciate it if you do. Please subscribe to my channel. Also, I would really appreciate if we're not doing well at this. Please subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it if you do that. And please turn on the notification bell so you can get regular updates of content that gets uploaded to the channel. Thank you and goodbye.